Great to see you, and hope you're all doing well. Hope that you're starting to be able to get your vaccines so we can all get back to having great art in person again. We have a great group of colleagues with us today to talk about their experiences with online fundraising and fundraising galas. So we have Charles Santos from TITAS with us today. He was one of the early adopters of the virtual gala idea. We have 3 people from Junior Players: Rosaura Cruz, the executive director, Megan Carfa and Abby Stigler. And we have Robin Plata Rose from the Dallas Theater Center. So welcome all of you. This is meant to be a very casual roundtable discussion. And so, feel free to raise your hand and ask questions or put something in the chat. You can either use the you raise your hand function in the chat or put a question in chat, or you can just wave at us and we'll try to recognize you if you have a question. So why don't we start with Charles? Charles, since you did, I think, one of the very first of the virtual galas that happened after we all went into lockdown, why don't you kind of walk us through what that experience was like, and give us your thoughts on efficacy and do's and don'ts, what worked, what didn't.
It was hell. No, we learned a lot. We did it early on. We did this last summer. It seems so hard to say that this was last summer. We learned a lot from some colleagues that were doing their fundraisers. Aspen Santa Fe Ballet had done a very successful auction, and Jacob's Pillow had done theirs very well. And so I sort of watched theirs, and then we called them and sort of learned what they did. The first thing I would suggest you do is you script everything, pre-record everything, and pre-record it as a live event. So as you're scripting, you need to write as, like you're speaking to a live audience as a live event. But we did a storyboard of everything that we were going to do. And, we had time slots of people, how long each video was and who's speaking leading into what. And somebody ended up not sending in their speaking video. So we took that as an opportunity to say, oh, some technical difficulties. I came running in to make an announcement for the next thing, but we knew that they weren't, it was all planned. I mean, they weren't there. It was just part of the whole live experience. I would highly recommend using a teleprompter. I used a program that I got downloaded called Prompt Smart Pro. There's a lot of different ones that you can get. It makes all the difference in the world to put a computer behind the camera so that you are looking at the camera, and you can practice. The one that I used scrolled at your speaking tempo. So it scrolled as you were speaking. It paused if I went off script and came back in when I jumped back into the script. So it was very useful. Elizabeth from TITAS, Elizabeth Van Vleck, she used a different one where you set the pacing and it just kept going. That freaked me out. So I was better with the one that listened to my pacing. But I would really, really use that. Also, another thing to really consider is you have to really think about, from where are you going to broadcast this thing? Doing it from your house is not a good idea. As you start getting in, let's say you're going to make it live at 7 p.m. It's high volume bandwidth time for people with, streaming. And, if you've got people in your house, you need to get them off the bandwidth while you're doing this. We ended up doing ours with, we didn't have the skills to do the editing. So we paid some money to Charlie Uniform Tango. There are lots of people that can do it, probably, less expensive. They gave us a good deal because they're on our board, but we paid someone to assemble all the pieces parts. And I had, like I said, I had a storyboard, as an Excel spreadsheet storyboard. And I sent it to them as I kept sending them the video clips. We recorded everything on an iPhone. We used, I used this thing, with to hold the phone and what's not. We recorded all the speaking parts with iPhones, and if they're a little sloppy, it's sort of like that. A choreographer from New York sent it in, and it was a little weird, but it felt live, and so we didn't want to alter it. we sent it all to a video editing to Charlie Uniform Tango in our case, and they assembled the video for us. I just didn't, I didn't want to have to learn to do it, and they did it. They, at first they were going to broadcast it from this guy's house who was editing remotely. And we really said the whole reason we came to you is to have this thing edited, broadcast from a place with big bandwidth, with T1 lines or whatever the latest technology is. So we broadcast from there. Although the other thing you have to really decide is what's your platform. We used Vimeo. Vimeo has fewer restrictions about copyright. YouTube and Facebook all use these algorithms that will, in particular with music, not so much with movement, but the music that is used for a dance, they will sometimes completely stop the broadcast if you haven't dealt with it in advance. So Vimeo was much easier to do. And so we loaded this onto Vimeo, and we didn't let it go live until 7 p.m. on the day that we did it. And then it was available. There are a couple of things that trigger copyright issues, and part of it is time. So we had ours available for 48 hours maximum. And then if anyone who was a donor that contributed wanted to see it outside that, they had to reach out to us, and we gave them a private link to our stored version of it. But it was available at 48 hours, and we used I don't know that I would do it totally again this way, but we used Tessitura to register people so that we could, on the day of the event, we emailed out the link. We didn't want to send it out prior. It was free to attend, but we raised all of our money before the event happened through sponsorships. What we didn't do as successfully as some other companies was the online donations. We were expecting we would raise probably 5 times what we raised online, and we didn't hit our online goal. Although we hit our goal, we surpassed our goal in sponsorship. We weren't good with it. What we ended up using for the online, because I didn't want to do a live element, we used a QR code that we popped up every now and then to point your camera. So if people were doing a viewing party, multiple people could make a contribution by scanning the QR code. And that worked very well. It's just that I don't think we scripted enough attention, verbal attention to the QR codes. I think that was our mistake. But we had a lot of, in terms of all the grants that we're writing, it was important to be able to say that we had participation from Germany, from France, from Israel. We had all these people that logged on, and it was great just in terms of explaining all of the outreach of it. Bandwidth, copyright. I want to make sure I just jump through this really quickly so y'all can ask. Oh, 2 other things. Make sure that you've got cheerleaders. The people that are speaking are really, they're cheerleaders. And I'm not always the best cheerleader, but you need to have someone that can sort of charge them up. Wasn't that great? Animated, and please look at the QR code and donate, and say those kinds of things. Those are really helpful. The great thing about pre-recording is you can correct. We had recorded a couple of our speakers, and when I viewed the recordings, they were terrible. And so we realized they're not comfortable speaking. So we took them to a room where they could sit and change, become physically more comfortable. And then they were infinitely better to use that footage. And one other quick thing, we also used this. Let me get back where I can see y'all. This is a Bluetooth microphone that you can put on the lapel called Insta Mic. One of the editors told me about it, and you sync it to your iPhone or whatever, and it just makes the recording of the sound so much better. So we bought a couple of them. And then the other thing that we wanted to do, since we couldn't do our gala where there's a formal dinner, we wanted to do something special. So we bought we got these boxes, and some people donated, but we ended up putting together a treat box, and we hand delivered it to our donors above a certain dollar level. And at first everyone was like going, oh my God, it's gonna be too many people. And I said, even if it's 40 people, who cares? You get 10 people to drive, each of us doing 4, you're done in nothing flat. And so we got together one on a Saturday, and we assembled in the boxes. There was olive tapenade and these cracker things from Trader Joe's, and there was a great bottle of wine and some. We had some custom cookies done, and somebody donated something else, and we put them together and tied them a really nice bow. It was a beautiful orange box, and we hand delivered them, thanking them for being sponsors, and we just want them to enjoy this treat while they watch the event. And people loved it. It took all of, I'd say, 2 hours for us to finish all the deliveries, but it was a blast. And it was fun to go out and drive out these people. Of course, I ended up picking somebody that lived in some dark hole in East Texas. It took me an hour to find it and 2 hours to get home. But it's a really great way to make it special for your viewers to do something simple like that, to hand deliver something. And it just took a bunch of volunteers. But we, like I say, the organizationally do a storyboard, whether you can do a storyboard lots of ways with, Post-its on a board, or just use an Excel spreadsheet, and you put intro, Charles intro, it's 10 seconds, and then you have the next piece, and you mount them, and you can tally up the time of your whole video so that you have control. But I will just, your platform is important. Vimeo, like I said, was really important because they didn't have the copyright flags that YouTube has. Having someone, however you decide to broadcast this thing, whether you're broadcasting live or you're preloading it to Vimeo like we did, and we had to buy a bigger Vimeo account. It was a higher level membership to get whatever it is that we got from them, but we ended up having to spend a little money there so that we wouldn't have any issues. It was well worth the investment, because now we know how to do it. But the scripting, the teleprompter, the place that you broadcast from, and the platform are all critical. And for those of you that are really going to use music, music is a big trigger for the copyright algorithms. So that's why I really recommend something like Vimeo. And I will stop and let people ask questions or whatever, Joanna.
And I just want to note that Tino has been putting some links into the chat with some of the things that Charles mentioned, like the microphone, the Vimeo, etc. And we are recording this, so if you missed some of this, you can, we'll post this next week on our website if you want to go back and pick some of this up. So any quick questions for Charles? And we'll have a Q&A at the end of this too. So any quick questions?
Joanna, if I could just jump in. Charles, so we used Vimeo for the 24-hour Dallas Digithon, and the premium plan is what we needed to purchase up front, which is about $900, actually more than that. But it allowed us to go up to 6 hours live stream, and then I had to do like a little toggle to get the other 6 as well. But you're right, it was so worth it to do it seamlessly.
And during a time when we don't know how long we may be doing these virtual environments, it was worth the investment to have it, to not have time restrictions or cutoffs. Or the other thing you've got to plan in advance is you have got to count on a tech error happening. So what are you going to do if the site goes down, if you lose your connection? How do you, what is the reboot plan? All that kind of stuff. And then you should prepare an email to everyone that's attending that you can, that's in a group, so that you can e-blast out, hey, we just went down, we'll be right back in 2 minutes at this link. Prepare that in advance. We had all of that sort of queued up in case. We were lucky, we didn't have any real issues. Later on, we had people that, that said they couldn't get in, and that is, I don't mean to be rude about it. 9 times out of 10, that is a user error. And we just like, I'm so sorry. Here's a link that I can show, I can give you later. There's no point in pointing it and saying you're just doing it wrong. There's no upside to that. So we just, we help them as best we could, and then we say, we can help you after we get through this live broadcast, which was not live, but it was, that way.
So Charles, your event was with you and Elizabeth on the stage at certain times, right?
Well, we pre-recorded everything. We were done a week and a half before the event. We had finished recording everything. We had asked the different choreographers that were supposed to be in the season or that were in this event, they all recorded in their own cities, in New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, and somebody was somewhere else. And they sent us, Robert Battle from Ailey, he recorded a little welcome, welcoming people to this event. And we're so sorry we got canceled, but we'll be back. And he just sent it to us. And so I put it into the storyboard and into the, and named all the files. This is speaker 1, speaker 2, video element 3, so on and so forth. We chose to use the theater, the empty theater, because one, we could, and because it helped promote the idea that this was a live event. And it just sort of set the stage that we were, doing this theater thing. So we didn't want it to be in our homes with our home or my office. We wanted the feel of the stage.
Well, I saw it, and I remember you were out of frame and you came running in to say something about, this is live and, something could happen. And so I got the sense that it was a live, from start to finish, that the entire thing was live. That was really nice, enjoyable too.
That's what we would, thank you. That's what we wanted it to be. We knew, again, we were done a week and a half before the event. We knew that Eduardo Vilaro had not sent in his recording, and I didn't want to chase him down anymore. So we introduced him and we planned about 2 seconds of darkness, and then we opened up to me sliding into the chair, going, like it was just happened. Well, technical difficulties, Eduardo can't be with us, so I introduced the piece. We scripted it.
Bravo.
Very clever.
And Nancy asks, how long was the event?
Ours was, I want to say, I'm not positive, but I want to say it was an hour event. I think it was right at an hour.
Yeah. Online attention spans are not, not as long as like a movie. They're, 40 minutes to an hour max. So
yeah, less is more. We also asked the video clips not be more than 5 minutes at the most. So some were 2 minutes, one was 6, but it had a lot of movement. So we really tried to limit, video clips to 5 minutes.
well, thank you, Charles. And we'll have some more question opportunities at the end, but I want to move on to Rosaura and Abby and Megan from Junior Players to tell us about their experiences with their online fundraising. So I'll turn it over to them.
Sure. Thank you, Joanna. Yes, and I'm going to echo a lot of the things that Charles mentioned. Contingency plan, the platform is important. For us, what we were switching over, we normally do an annual gala. And so, of course, because we can't convene, we kind of brainstormed quite a bit on what it would look like, what we could do. We did a small fundraiser, a wine tasting event, probably a few months prior. One of the challenges was the delivery, and we opened it up to, anyone and everyone. The problem with that is it's that you do have to deliver to the middle of nowhere. And so that just became really hectic. So we thought, okay, how can we include some of those wonderful components that exist in the gala? And then what can we get rid of? What expenses can we eliminate for this year? So we switched over to what we're calling our Future Stars event series. So think about it sort of akin to the Tate lecture series, where we had 4 different events, 90 minutes each, with one keynote speaker. We did have a silent auction. We eliminated the live auction portion, but we're able to keep some of those other little small revenue generators, like a raffle for a Magnum champagne bottle. We did a raffle for a Q&A for a 15 to 20 minute private Q&A with the keynote speaker after the main event is done. So it was sort of like an after one-on-one with limited amounts of folks in the room. The main strategy for us was just to raise revenue through sponsorships, ticket sales, so like ticket bundles, because we had 4. So the idea was we're creating this buzz, giving you a better deal if you choose to buy all 4, so on and so forth. And then silent auction donations, silent auction revenue, and then donations for the event. Like Charles, we found that a lot of people on the day of were not as avid to donate, to sponsor a junior player. I think that's one of the things about live events is that you have that pressure to, because your friends are in the room or there's so much buzz and you're just having a great time. The cocktails are delivered to your table, all of that good stuff. But what we did do with the sponsorship is we condensed it and kept it to less levels. So we did $1,000, $2,500, and a $5,000 level because we just weren't sure that we were going to sell those large $10,000 sponsorships like we normally do with tables. And it seemed to work. Like Charles, a lot of our sponsorships were covered. We were pretty much 80 to 85% of the goal by the time we reached the first series event. And we were excited about that. So we knew we only had like 15 or 20% to raise during the entire time. The series ranged from October the 19th through December the 10th. So we did it on days that worked for the speakers. The speakers were procured through all of our different close family stakeholders. So we had a junior players alum, William Jackson Harper, who's the star of The Good Place and in quite a few different movies. So he was our first keynote speaker. And then we had James Roday Rodriguez, who is a star of Psych and A Million Little Things, followed by Dean Fearing, celebrity chef. We thought we'd throw, a non-actor in there, but someone who had sort of an act or an arts background. And then we closed it with the epic Jeff Daniels. All of these were connections through board members, family members, things like that. So we had to get creative. Now, you may notice that they were all men. We did try our best to get women by POC, and for some strange reason, Abby had to have emailed 300 plus people. We were trying to get a Sit Marshall or folks like that, and I think it just wasn't working, but we were able to get these all-stars, and we did a hybrid. So we did some pre-recorded elements and then some live broadcast elements. We wanted the live portion to feel like you knew a Jeff Daniel, you were in his home. And that's exactly what happened, because you got this private tour of what all of their homes look like, where their private studios. But we did know that we had to pre-record our speeches. So the overall picture looked like the patron waited in our virtual lobby where we let them know about upcoming events, how the event was going to work, key things to note throughout the 90-minute session. And then we opened it up with a pre-recorded speech, my speech, and then our president. And then we turned it over to our moderator, who introduced a few student videos or things that we did in 2020 to highlight the work on what we were doing. And then a moderated session between the moderator and the keynote speaker. And that took on different formats depending on the comfortability of the speaker. Dean just wanted to talk for, the 30, 40 minutes. He's like, I got this. I can tell you stories upon stories, and then Jeff was a very loose moderator. He said, just ask me questions. And we had some student pre-recorded Q&As as well. And so we would flip to that. So all of this was on one huge platform with a vendor called Auction Event Sources, I believe. I'll put that link in there in just a second. I don't know that I would 100% recommend them. We've used them in previous years because they were a one-stop shop for our silent auction and our live auction. And they're wonderful in that because they're experts in that world. I think streaming through Vimeo and all of that was a little bit more difficult. So I would probably explore a different company to help us with that. It sort of felt like it was trial and error with us. But the beautiful thing about for series events is that we learned from each event. So we had probably 2 weeks in between to go, okay, that didn't work. We need a teleprompter. We need, this is more natural, if a more natural segue. Like Charles mentioned, you do need an animated moderator because they are the ones really making that pitch, that ask through the entire time. And then we also realized that throughout the script, we had to make certain verbiage changes to encourage the donors to donate. donate, making sure that your keynote speaker is really hitting it on the nail. The reason that we're here is to donate to the XYZ organization. And so the more that we did that, the more we saw an increase in our donations. Trying to think of what else. During the event, folks were able to, because we were on the AES platform, it was just, you could scroll up and down, you could go through the silent auction, come back. We had text messages throughout the event, reminder, this is closing, or the raffle is still available, things like that, but not enough to distract from the conversation. Those were just gentle, subtle reminders happening throughout. We did leave the silent auction open through the entire keynote series. That was sort of a question mark for us. We were like, is that going to make people upset? Honestly, it just, and we also added along the way the buy it now feature, because we did hear some feedback like, hey, I would really just want to go ahead and, because I'm not going to be able to make that last keynote speaker series. So that helped. We really only had just a few items that didn't sell. So that worked really wonderfully. For the filming of this and for the actual live stream, we were in a separate space because I felt, again, I didn't want to be in our own homes and risk the bandwidth of the internet and all of that. So we wanted to be hardwired in. We did our first event at a place called On the Levee because it was very spacious, had a lot of COVID-19 friendly practices. We set up our step and repeat. We set up the moderator in front of the camera. The keynote speakers, like I said, were in their respective homes because they live in New York, California, Chicago, everywhere. And then we moved to the Salmon Center, to Meadows, which was also just, and we actually stayed there because we found that to be a quieter space. We could control different elements. Not a lot of folks were in the building at that time. So we put our JP team on the third floor, and then the moderator, the artistic manager, and our AES team member were on the first floor. Now, there was once or twice where it was like, oh, what happened, or what's stalling? We had that luxury where we could move from space to space, but we weren't creating all of that noise. And we used Vimeo as well. We didn't use the platinum one because I don't think we needed all of that since it was only a 90-minute thing, and it worked wonderfully. And we did do, when we were in the spaces, we created COVID-19 protocols. We wanted to make sure sending those waivers ahead of time, temperature checks, the production crew was temperature checked at every single event from start to finish. And then we minimized, it was 10 people or less for each event. And let's see. The audience was great. So typically we see about 350 people in our in-person event. We saw way more than that, way over 400 folks. We reached more households, which was great because it was a virtual event, and because we had several dates and there were different stakeholders that were of interest for James Roday. Same thing for Dean Fearing. He had his own following. So we captured quite a different bit of new audience members that were not familiar with junior players. And let's see, influencers, we used influencers that followed all of these different folks and their genres. So that was great. We were able to have some social media not prizes, contests. And so we had a lot more student participation, young influencers, because we lowered those ticket prices towards the end just to make it affordable for those folks. So we saw a lot of diverse stakeholders in our Future Star Series campaign. And then digital collateral was great. We also did deliver actual programs to our main sponsors. So you can see this, but it was available digitally. We were able to save on that cost. For our $2,500 and up folks, we did do McGuire sponsored some of the food. It's typically a plated dinner. We did appetizers for the $2,500, and then for the $5,000 and above, we did an actual 3-course dinner. Basically, all we did there was we pre-ordered everything. It was a lot more communication with the sponsors, but that also gives you a lot more touch points with them, right? And so we pre-ordered all of that. The sponsor had to go pick up their own stuff at McGuire. So we didn't deliver that stuff because everybody had such a weird, wonky schedule, but nobody minded that. We did deliver wine bottles to their contact list, just let them know know, hey, here's the amount of wine that came with your sponsorship. And again, even though it may have been 20, 30 households, that personal touch, I mean, I think people loved that. So we got a lot of great feedback with that. Trying to think if there's, as far as silent auction items go, we set up a period of time and said, you can pick up your items on this date, this date, this date, this time. Please let us know what you would like to do. You know, bagged everything up. It was super simple. We actually did curbside. So when they would call us or text us, the appropriate representative would go down, deliver their items. They would sign the receipt that it's done, and no one complained about that. I mean, I think they thought it was excellent. So this happened for a period about a week or two after. Now we still have some folks who have some items still here, but you know, and they're like, oh, we'll pick it up at some point in time in 2021. You know, I think. Let's see. Yeah, contingency plan is key. There were, you know, we didn't have a teleprompter for the moderator, and that was something we should have had, because there were some things that, you know, if there was any lag on anyone else's side, they could continue with the show, but we needed to do that. I'm trying to think if there were any other areas that I missed, Abby or Megan, of opportunity.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, I mean, you know, like Rosaura said, one of the great things about what we did is that we did 4 events. So we got to learn from the previous ones and kind of apply those corrections. And I think something that was really beneficial that we did was instead of just explaining how everything worked in an email for the second event moving forward, we made little how-to videos. And people seem to really respond to those a lot better. Basically, I just screen recorded my own screen and kind of talked through, like, how do you find the video? How do you find our silent auction stuff? How do you donate? All of that stuff, and sending that out to people prior in an email. It really made the amount of emails and calls we got the day of saying, like, I'm confused, so much less. It seemed to really help people's understanding of how the site would work. And then we had those same videos playing in our lobby screen. So we had the pre-show video playing for 30 minutes before the show actually began. And those videos kind of ran on a loop in addition to some junior players videos and some other stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was a really great opportunity for us. And I would highly recommend sending that video explanation, because sometimes with online things, you have to send a really long email to explain everything, and not everyone's going to be able to read the whole thing. So we thought that really aided our audience members' understanding of the platform we were using.
Yeah, and just because, you know, not everyone is super tech savvy, it doesn't matter what your age is. I think just walking everybody through it. They were short, simple, to the point. That really improved the user connectivity and experience moving forward. The Q&A, like that special 10 or 15, 20 minutes with the keynote speaker, was super successful. We got we actually said, if you enter in this raffle for $25, whatever it was, you'll get a possible opportunity to meet, you know, James Roday or Jeff Daniels. And that, like, people really love that just informal, like, ask me anything type of thing. You know, of course, that we did do demos prior to and rehearsals with them, but with those keynote speakers, we did want to make sure it was very minimal, because a lot of them have a busy schedule and they were already doing this for free. And that was kind of one of the most amazing things, is because we're virtual and we really were flexible with whatever comfort level they were willing to do this format in. You know, Dean Fearing gave us a recipe on, you know, he was like, as long as I can give you a recipe, I don't, you know, certain things like that we were like, sure, we don't care. But those were some memorable things that the patrons really took away.
Does anyone have questions for Rosaura or any of her colleagues?
You know, I do want to say something that Rosaura said that was important was hardwire. The big difference between using a Wi-Fi and being hardwired. If you have to do it from home, hardwire to the computer. Do not use your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and when you're looking at a venue, make sure that they're also able to do that as well, because we did look at a few different venues and realized some of them did not have that capability. So.
Yeah, we learned that we had that capability at the Salmon Center when junior players needed it. So you were the first to try that.
It was very easy.
Well, good. Well, why don't we move on and ask Robin from Dallas Theater Center to share the experiences they had with their virtual fundraising. So I'll turn it over to you, Robin.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. So we did a lot of things similar and a lot of things different. Our gala was in February on a Friday night, so pretty recent. It was about 90 minutes. We also did a combination of pre-recorded and live content. We actually worked through Mobile Cause, which a lot of people you might have heard of using for the text to give option. That's kind of what they're most known for. But they do also host live virtual events. So part of what made that attractive to us is we've been wanting to get into text to give for quite some time, and we hadn't done that yet. So this kind of served both purposes. So even though the gala is over, we're still going to keep using the text to give option. It's super, super simple. So for the pre-recorded content, we had an opening and closing kind of book and music videos that we recorded. So we kind of had a video shoot day with our acting company. We had pre-recorded messages from the managing director. We did a staff EDI video where the staff members read, each staff member read a sentence of our EDI statement. We also had a pre-recorded statement from the event chairs. The difficult thing with pre-recording statements was we have extremely strict COVID protocols at the theater. And so it was difficult to, the two chairs don't live in the same household, and they really wanted to be in the video together in the same shot. So that was one of the more challenging things to get them. They had to get tested for COVID. We had to do it outside of the Calita, and there was background noise. And I would say that was one of the things that we probably struggled with the most as far as pre-recorded content. I would also say in planning for editing videos, double the amount of time you think it's going to take to edit videos, because as much as we tried so hard to not be down to the wire, we were editing the day before. And that's, that was very stressful. It all worked out wonderfully. We're fortunate that we have an excellent video editor on our staff, and we paid him an extra stipend because we knew he'd be working above and beyond his normal work week. But I think he will tell you that he deserved to be paid more for the amount of work that he put into that, especially that week of the event. Another piece of pre-recorded content is, we had videos that highlight our programming and stuff, but we also wanted to have kind of a more meaty element to it. So we did an interview with a past director, Liesl Tommy, who directed Les Mis, which is one of our biggest and most successful productions we've ever done. So that kind of was in the middle of the event that served as kind of the more meaty element, so that it wasn't just 2 to 3 minute videos sprinkled throughout. For live content, we did it at the Wiley Theater in our studio space. We ended up using elements that we had already made for our canceled gala that May before. So the backdrop served as pieces that were already created. So we were trying not to tax our production staff too much in the midst of already doing the shows that they were working on. We hired out a live videographer, Chris Grissom. He was absolutely wonderful to work with. Happy to send you his name. I'll put it in the chat in a minute. He brought in his own team, his own equipment. That was probably the largest expense in our budget, and ended up being about $16,000. But to us, that it was worth it, because our production team was already super taxed doing their own thing. So that was just one of those things that we had to get outsourced. But they were wonderful to work with. Everything went absolutely smoothly that night. Our artistic director, Kevin Moriarty, and then 2 of our acting company members were kind of hosts. And so they introduced the video content in between. One of our acting company members also did live updates on how we were doing. So one of the cool things about Mobile Cause is they have this live event thermometer. So during the event, we could pan over to him. He was dressed kind of like, the idea was that he would kind of be like Steve Kornacki, and throughout the evening get more disheveled. I don't know if that actually read well or not on the screen, but one of the reasons we wanted to have a live element was, well, really the main reason was to be able to thank donors in real time and give live updates on where we were with fundraising. I think, you know, like Rosaura and Charles said, we were expecting to raise more that night. And so I think looking ahead, if we were to do this again, I think we might do all of it pre-recorded, because the live updates, you know, we weren't getting enough gifts in to where we were jumping 10% from, you know, 1 minute to the next. So it didn't have the effect that I was hoping for it to have. And I still think you can pre-record thanking specific donors that have either already given or that, you know, are going to give that night, especially board members. I will say, you know, being on a live set was really fun for me because I've never done anything like that before. Video producing is not going to go on my resume, but it was definitely fun. It was definitely stressful though, especially also dealing with COVID protocols. We all had to get tested multiple times in order to be even in the same room together. So it was difficult, but it really was a lot of fun, and I think went really well. So let's see, we used MobileCause. They recommended that we stream through YouTube, but onto a MobileCause page. So for the event, we sent out a link and that brought you to the MobileCause event page, but that wasn't live. And that's where we had our underwriter listing, our host committee listing. There were links to our online auction. And then that day, the site would go live and stream the video through, it's weird, I don't totally understand it, through YouTube, but onto the MobileCause page, which I think might have gotten around copyright problems perhaps, and didn't, because our opening and closing video, we found out afterwards that we couldn't put on YouTube for copyright reasons, but we didn't have any issues, thank God. We didn't have any issues during the actual streaming of the event. So something we learned in hindsight. We did do an online auction. We used HandBid, which works with MobileCause, and that was really helpful because any of the transactions that happened in HandBid end up going through MobileCause, and you don't have to give bank information out to too many companies. You don't have to reconcile with too many companies. So that made it really, really easy. The online auction went pretty well. We don't usually do online or silent auctions. At our galas, we do a live auction with maybe 5 items. So this was something totally new to me, and was a huge learning curve, learning how to set all of that up online. But I think it went pretty well. We had about 40 items, and ended up raising about $46,000 from that, which got us to our goal. So I would, you know, going forward, when we do live events again, I think I will do an online auction again, because it's a great way to raise a little bit of extra money. Our event was free to attend. We didn't ask people to register beforehand. That's something that I kind of am still unsure was the right decision, because I really like to know who was watching. Because we didn't raise a whole lot of money during the event. I think we got 63 donations during the event. That doesn't give me a whole lot more data as far as who was actually tuning in that night, that I wish I had. Our concern there was that if people have to give information in order to access the event, that they would just back away and not do it. I still, you know, I welcome any thoughts on that. Actually, I'm not sure if that was the right way to go or not. Let's see. You know, it was interesting. We kept our underwriting levels basically the same. We added a lower 500. Usually our our tickets to the event are $1,000. We added a $500 level, and I found that most, you know, they're mostly board members, but they all stayed at that, you know, $10,000 or $5,000 or $15,000 level, which was great, even though they didn't get a table for the event. I know some people still did like sold tables. So, you know, they would have, there's some platforms you can use that actually like sell tables to events, and they're in their own little room before the streaming starts. And that sounds cool, but we didn't do that. We had Saloon, which is one of our restaurant partners. They delivered, that was the best part. They delivered a 3-course meal to the 10,000 level and above, which ended up being about 40 dinners. At the 5,000 level, people could come to the restaurant and pick it up that night. The best part about that was all I had to do was send them the addresses and they took care of the rest of it. I didn't have to deliver anything, which was wonderful. They're also just a wonderful restaurant, and I want to plug them because they're a great restaurant partner of ours. What else? Definitely agree with the hardwire. One of the big questions at the beginning was where are we going to be for this thing? We thought about doing the Kalita, but then, you know, Kalita needs some work, and internet there is not the absolute best. So we decided to be at the Wiley, and we're able to hardwire, and so luckily didn't have any kind of issues there. Oh, one thing I also liked about MobileCause that we did not capitalize on is they do crowdfunding. So you can get your board members to kind of sign on to, it's almost like a fundraising for a run walk. You kind of have a team and you go out and they go out and raise their own money. I wish we had, it would really just came down to bandwidth for me to inspire people to do that. But I have a feeling, you know, our board members are pretty competitive. I have a feeling that they would have some of them would have taken that and run with it and raised a good chunk of money. It also would have gone towards their annual give or get, which I think would have been enticing for them to get to their give or get that way. I don't know. So something to think about, you know, moving forward. Sorry, I'm really just rambling, trying to get as much info to you as I can. I think there were a lot of questions about how to watch the event. Toward the beginning, I was very much just about get the MobileCause link out there. Everyone just needs to know, they just go to the link, go to the link. What I didn't make clear was that's also what you do to watch the event. So I had a lot of people say, well, yeah, I saw the page, but like, what do I do that night? So I had to make it clear that that page would become the live event. That's something I wish that I had made clear at the beginning. Okay, yeah, I think that's it.
Robin, thank you so much. I know one thing probably everybody's wondering is in terms of the financial reward for doing these, maybe each of you could, you know, kind of talk about, did you meet your goal or not? But also, you probably likely saved a lot of money on doing it live or doing it virtual instead of a live event. So in the, you know, when it all, you know, came out in the wash, did you make what you had hoped? Did you make more? Did you make less? So Robin, why don't you go ahead and start, and then we'll go back to Charles and Rosaura.
Sure. Yeah. So expenses were significantly less than a normal gala. We do our galas on a pretty shoestring budget every year. We're usually around 150,000 in expenses and raise 675, 650. For this event, our expenses were about 50,000 and we raised a little over 500. Our goal was 475. So we ended up surpassing our goal by about $30,000.
Great, thank you. Rosaura?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different micro fundraisers leading up to our big gala, but we were hoping prior to the pandemic to raise around like the $90,000, $100,000 mark as far as netting. And then what we were really strategic and okay, what can we do now? And we took a look at everything, just given that we were going to reduce the number of sponsorship levels. So our goal was to net 60, and we were just shy, maybe like by a few thousand, like 1,000 or 2,000, which was great. But our expenses were like severe, I mean, cut in half, more than half. So that was great for us. Yeah, the biggest expense was the AES and procuring that platform. But other than that, we were still able to get sponsorships for wine delivery and for the food. So
Great, thank you. Charles, how about you?
We did exceed our goal. It was we were hoping to clear 100 and I think it was 120 or something. We ended up making about 130, 140. We spent probably about 35 on the event. It's significantly less than what we spend on the gala, but the gala raises more money. We did not set the same goal. The gala is way more lucrative, but we exceeded our goal with it. And part of it was that we paid honorariums to every artist that was involved. So we had to add that to, we retained that in our budget. It was not the same as a performance honorarium that the gala, but we did pay everyone an honorarium for, you know, sharing their artistry because they should be paid. So we did that. We had to add that, and the biggest expense was paying the editor, you know, Charlie Tango.
And Joanna, something else to note is that one of our other campaign objectives with the gala was that we wanted to increase visibility, because we know, you know, and it was the opportunity to gain new stakeholder groups. And I think that was super highly successful. We were able to sort of capture that through each little minor event.
Something that I was, Robin was saying this, and it made me think of this. 3 things I just want to put out there. One, don't be afraid to ask for help, because we called everyone we knew to get us help to get to this. And it was, you know, I don't have a problem with that. Uber has a program where they can deliver. I think it was Elizabeth was telling me, or somebody was telling me, that there's Uber, you know, some people have used Uber to deliver their dinners. We liked the personal touch, but that's an option. And something to keep in mind as you're putting together your gala, start your credits document from the very beginning. Who do you want to recognize in the credits? You know, we had to recognize all the sort of what I call the center spread, you know, when you have a show and you have choreographer, and we had all of that laid out for each of the pieces, but then we had everybody that we needed to thank and the sponsors and their levels. And we just kept that document rolling, and we were updating it to the very last minute that we, you know, that we sort of said, we're done. But that document is something you don't want to leave to the end. Just keep it running.
Charles, I second that, because we did not do that. And I don't know if people followed us on Facebook, but we left our music director off of the credits, which was a huge blunder of ours. And that was because 2 days before we were scrambling, trying to get everybody into the credits as quickly as we could. So big lesson learned there.
On the question how do you promote and market your events? Did you do any paid ads? We didn't. We used, we used our campaigner, which is our, you know, that we send out our e-marketing. We upload all our ticket buyers. We also loaded my personal contacts and all of our personal contacts that we wanted to add to the list, professional contacts in other countries and whatnot. We added them to, Elizabeth controlled the list, but we added a special list of, you know, we're going to include all the industry people in this thing, and we just blasted them on with campaigner, but we didn't buy any paid ads.
Yeah, and I can answer that for junior players. We also didn't buy any paid ads. We actually had a good amount of success with the influencers, like Rosaura talked about. What we did that we found very successful was we joined fan pages on different social media accounts for the different keynote speakers we had. So there are fan pages, you know, for Will Rodriguez, James Verde, Rodriguez, Will Harper, Dean Farron, you know, pretty much everybody, and kind of used them to drive word of mouth. And then we also, since it was virtual, we reached out to a lot of our alumni and basically said, like, hey, if you want to post about this event, we can give you a free ticket. And our alumni were all really excited about that opportunity, because as they're all out at college and in different states now doing different things, they don't have the opportunity very often to attend junior players events. So being able to attend this one virtually was really exciting to them. So we had a lot of alumni who were excited about the chance to promote the show through social media.
A big question, and before we launched this, was whether or not we were going to charge to attend the event. And I'm still not clear that we chose not to. I'm not sure it was the right choice. I'm not sure that we wanted more people to get in there. We were counting on online live donations happening, and we didn't get anywhere near as many as we thought we would, but we got a lot of exposure. And the reason we had them register, so we would capture their email addresses. So to get the link to see the event, you had to register. You'd have to pay, but then you had to at least enter your email address so that we could send you the link. And that was the advantage to the registration, was that we at least got their email addresses. But we went back and forth about whether or not to charge. And I don't know, we made a decision. It was the decision we made. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think going free, this was the year to do that. Being virtual, it's so much easier to do that. There's no limit to capacity. And I also think it kind of speaks to where we are right now, and that our event was called Staging Joy, and all we were trying to do was just bring some joy to the world, and that was kind of the purpose and the message of the evening. And so it made sense for us to want to spread that far and wide as far as we could, and to make it free for anyone. We did not do any kind of paid ads or anything like that. We focused on social media and on e-blasting like crazy. I also built an email that was easy for our board members to just forward on to all of their contacts, and all they had to do was hit forward and call it done. Which, board members are our biggest advocates, so I think that was helpful.
Joanna, one of the things that's popping up now is where virtual will lie in the future of the arts moving forward. In my specific part of this world, which right now is in the dance world, I am not a proponent of putting live performances on out there, because I think we're teaching people that you can experience the arts on your phone and that's enough. It is something that we've had to do, and we're looking for a virtual content. And I say this because we've been talking about whether or not we're going to do another virtual event fundraiser. We're only interested in virtual content that is like process stories, like meeting with a choreographer about the idea of a piece and funny stories about the process, and then here's a snippet. If you want to see the piece, come to the theater. Because I think we have to stay positive. We have to look forward beyond the next year as to where we're going to be in the arts, and people will get back to the theaters. We will get back to some sense of normal. It maybe have changed some, but we want people to come back to the theater. So we're not committing a lot of time and energy to the virtual realm in terms of, we're not going to do the next gala virtual. We talked about it and the board decided not to. And we just proposed our gala. It's normally the summer, has been postponed until next April. And that's, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do the virtual route, but the board voted against it. But it's something we all have to contend with. Is virtual is here to stay, and we need to figure out how to best use it without jeopardizing, what we do as live presenters and producers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say we are actually thinking of doing our gala live next year, but including a virtual element so that people can tune in just for the performance part. We've tried to do like a single ticket price for people to come to the theater just for the show portion, and it hasn't been super successful. So I think what we're trying to do here is the people who buy a table are going to buy a table. They're always going to buy a table. They want to be in the room, but we're hoping that if we can do just the performance element virtually, and we would sell a ticket that wouldn't be free. I think we would want to actually have people purchase that will get people enticed to maybe buy a live ticket to the performance in future years. We'll see.
Yeah, that was going to be my final question to each of you was, would you do this again, or would you find, even once we are able to go back to in-person, would you still include some kind of a virtual element? And I was thinking of what Rosaura said about being able to get, some, well-known celebrities because they were virtual, that maybe there's an aspect of this that is an advantage in terms of, trying to build events that people would be interested in attending who may not come to a live event.
Yeah. Joanna, for that, I think we have not decided yet. We have an upcoming meeting with our committee to see what it'll look like. They are leaning towards having an in-person gala, a smaller event with some sort of virtual component tied to it. Maybe sort of they love the keynote speaker series. What I found, the bandwidth on the staff was very taxing because we're doing that on top of, now we don't have an extra additional community member in charge of the silent auction items, all of the, picking up and things like that. So it just became it was easier in some regards, and then it was very taxing in other regards. But now that we know, I think moving forward, the keynote speaker series can be done more effectively. But we are we're producing our first live event April 7th through the 9th, which is a fashion show. It's our first production. And the only reason we selected that was because of the venue. We are using On the Levee. I love those folks, by the way, and they've been really accommodating, but they have the garage door openings. We're keeping those open during the fashion show. The students will be masked, ability to, when they're walking 6 feet apart, so, all of that good stuff. So that's going to be our first trial and error, but we are also virtually streaming that and doing that completely free for those folks that don't feel comfortable coming to the space on those nights. So.
Another thing I just want to encourage us all to do is we need to discourage people from asking artists to constantly donate their energy, their talent to these events. Pay them something, even if it's just an honorarium. We need to pay artists because everyone wants everyone to do it for free, and it's minimizing the value of the art. And we budgeted an honorarium because it has to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Charles. We actually have a board resolution at the Salmon Center from many years ago that we do not ever ask artists to perform for free or participate in our events for free. So yeah, agreed. Artists are already at the bottom of the food chain. So
I will say we're fortunate that we have an acting company full time, so we were able to do it within their contract. Otherwise, we absolutely would have paid them an honorarium for that. I agree completely. I am so sorry. I have to step away. I've got another meeting to get to, but
sure.
Thank you so much for having me today. And I put my email in the chat, and if anyone ever wants to chat more, just feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. Thank all of you for sharing that. That was so, it was so helpful to all of us. And, we just can't thank you enough for sharing all that information and your experiences with us. So thank you, Charles. Thank you, Rosaura. Thank you. Just thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Joanna, for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you next Wednesday for general meeting.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.